Question 10. Don says, I would read several statements here and ask for Ra's comments on the statement. First, until an entity becomes consciously aware of the evolutionary process, the logos or intelligent energy creates the potentials for an entity to gain the experience necessary for polarization. Would Ra comment on that? Ra says, this is so. We have talked about this, and this is deviating a little bit from the archetypical mind because this has, I'm not going to say anything to do, but it's not directly related to the archetypical mind, but rather is the process of pre-incarnative programming. So what happens? Just as a refresher, because I think this will come up again in the next questions. There is the entity, and the entity has a sort of evolutionary process. If it's a new entity, it has very little evolutionary experience. It hasn't activated much of its energy centers, if anything at all. And then there is the evolved entity, which is a lot more permeable to the influxes, let's say, of the spirits. So before there is a certain threshold, which Ra called the activation of the heart chakra, before that threshold, there is a sort of automatic feeding of catalysts to the entity, just like animals in nature have, right? Can we say that somebody is programming their catalyst? No, it's just the movements of intelligent energy as they are, or as it is, for the animals. And so they encounter just logoic catalysts, which is just the movements of nature. Coming from that point, then new third density entities, humans, who have just started their evolutionary process, first incarnation, maybe first 20 incarnations, who knows how long it takes for somebody to activate the heart. It could take them 100 incarnations. I don't know. The point is that there is a threshold in which the entity will open the heart and say, wow, I am not this limited being. I am actually something else. I do not understand it, but it is beyond mind and body. And so spirit is being channeled through. Great. Fantastic. It's willingly now. The entity is knowledgeable of this. So when it dies, pre-incarnatively, it programs itself because it is now able to see itself. It's almost like God opened its eye through the heart. You see, whereas before it was dormant. It was the same God, nothing different. And there was nobody else programming it but its own subconscious, let's say. The logoic subconscious information or intelligence was programming its own catalyst until it opens its eye and says, I am. And once through this I am, it can never close its eyes again, at least not in time space where this programming happens. When it comes here, though, then the veil of forgetting, of course, makes us asleep again. So we need to wake up, if you will, a second time. But the heart is already open. The heart is already awake. So that's what Don is talking about here. This is old. I think he was just asking this for part of his sequence of questions that he's going to ask, right? So I think he was just making sure, because we know this. Until an entity becomes consciously aware of the evolutionary process, the logos or intelligent energy creates the potentials. See, it potentiates an entity to gain experience necessary for polarization. What is that polarization for? Activating the heart. It's not for graduation, but it's activating the heart chakra, which means, yeah, you begin to work now consciously towards graduation, towards harvestability. Don't confuse the two. Polarization is not an indication of graduation or harvestability, but it is the means in which graduation happens because you polarize. So let's say polarization happens until heart activation, and then heart activation propels it beyond 51%, if you remember the numbers.